Good morning, gentlemen. We have now come to another installment of my channel, and let's get cracking on it. And what am I going to talk now? Today, again, we're going to talk on something very important, that is the battle in Ukraine. But along with that, we are also going to discuss the downfall of the hegemony of the Anglo-Saxon powers. Now, who are the Anglo-Saxon powers? They are basically the UK and the USA and fringe countries like Australia, Canada. Let's be very clear, Germany and France are not part of this conglomeration. Now, these two Anglo Saxon powers have been dominating the world since 1945. But there's always an end, and there is a beginning of the end. And the beginning of the end lies in the battle in Ukraine. Now, if you all remember, during Second World War, in the famous Battle of Stalingrad, where the Nazi army was stopped by the Red Army, what did Winston Churchill say? Churchill was the British Prime Minister, and he said, "This is the beginning of the end." It means the beginning of the end of the Nazi Reich. I'm afraid the battle in Ukraine is the beginning of the end of American hegemony over Europe and the world. And the man responsible for it is none other than, a person like who's the President of the United States at the moment, and that is Mr. Joe Biden. Well, he's got a long innings in public life, 50 years, 8 years as Vice President, but he seems to be, I mean, if I can use the word, which is not a bad word, but it's a moron. Moron means a man who doesn't have much sense. And that's precisely what it is. Now, these people, the Anglo-Saxon powers, they created, extended NATO. They wanted to reason the attack for it, and they created an enemy, that is Russia. Russia is the enemy. Fair enough. But then you must have the muscle power to enforce it, which they don't have. That's the crux of the issue. And then you have got to take all the other European countries who are members of NATO along with you. France is no longer a member of NATO, and Germany has got cold feet. They don't want to fight Russia for the Anglo-Saxons, and destroy their own life. So everybody is not in the same footing. The smaller countries like Estonia, Latvia, Belgium, they are the ones who are siding with the Anglo-Saxons, thinking they will be saved from the Russian bear. But as you have seen in Ukraine, the American boots are not on the ground. They're nowhere. Even the request by Ukraine for a no-fly zone has been rejected by the United States. Why? Because America doesn't want to fight Russia. That would mean the beginning of the end of American and Western civilization, World War III. And Putin has made it clear he's not going to miss his punches. No, sir, not at all. So there was a series of miscalculations, and the world has been watching that they egged on Ukraine. And what has Ukraine gained out of it? Nothing. They haven't gained anything. They've lost 25% of their territory already. Two separate republics have been created in the eastern region of Ukraine, and they've been recognized by a few countries. So what the hell, what the Americans have been doing? They've been leading Mr. Zelensky up the garden path, and that fellow doesn't know what to do. I mean, he's been a comedian or something like that, a showman. He has no political acumen, experience. He was going around saying, holding applications. Look, this is my application for fast track membership of the EU. I'm joining NATO. But the other party's got to take a decision also. And the French president, Macron, made a very clear statement. What did he say? He said, there is no provision in the EU to make a country which is at war a member. So that's the end of the matter. Ukraine's been left high and dry. And now, with the Russians having surrounded Kiev and the other big city, Kharkov, vast areas they have captured in the Donetsk region, they have captured further areas in the Crimea and much ahead. And now he's getting some senses. He's saying, we're not going to go after NATO, we don't want it. All we want is security guarantees. Well, this is something he could have done it earlier, but now the cat is out of the bag and who's going to put it inside? Certainly not Joe Biden. He doesn't know what to do, and he's just sitting quietly there, mouthing sanctions against Russia, sanctions after sanctions. Now, these sanctions can be self defeating, and the world at large is watching what the Americans are doing. Taiwan is alarmed, certainly alarmed. Let's take it that in a year or two, when the Chinese have built up the capability, and mind you, at the moment they don't have the capability for a seaborne invasion, but they will get it in another 2 years' time. And if they mount a seaborne invasion on Taiwan, are the Americans going to commit their ground troops to fight there? No way. They're not capable. They don't have the manpower to match the Chinese, and then the Chinese would be fighting on home ground. And another very big mistake which the Americans have done right from 1973, when the great gentleman Nixon went and paid obeisance to the Emperor Mao Zedong, he accepted that Taiwan was a part of China. He's accepted it. And that has been the American policy all through. They have not recognized Taiwan as an independent country. Now, that's a crucial point. If the Americans were really firm about Taiwan, they would have declared Taiwan as an independent country, opened their embassy there, instead of hiding around, sending a few fighters here and there, and some delegation going and no American president talking to the Taiwanese president because it'll anger the Chinese. Now, when you have that sort of policy, I mean, just look at it. Do you think they're going to fight for Taiwan? No way. They'll have, because if you do it, it's again going to be world war. So Taiwan is like a small pawn, like Ukraine on the chessboard. Pick it up, throw it there, let it be eaten by the night, the queen. That's all. That's what's going to happen. But the repercussions for America are terrible. And the latest news which I've got is the demise of the petrodollar. Now, what is the petrodollar? Let me tell you a little bit about it. I won't waste much time because it's a technical subject for you all, but suffice it that in 1974, there was an agreement signed by the United States with Saudi Arabia where it was agreed that all oil from Saudi Arabia in the Middle East would be traded in dollars, and whatever money was coming, the surplus, would be invested in America. Now, this is a very big point. So the petrodollar, Saddam Hussein was one man who was never in favor of petrodollars. He didn't want it, and that's why they made a devious plan. They thought they'll get the Iraqi oil, and they got him strung up after a farcical trial. This is a mockery. There's no trial. And then there are a lot of people, in America shouting around in some of the sites which I write, Putin is a murderer, he's a killer, he's killing children. Nobody thinks about what the Americans did in Iraq. The situation is so bad that no American can walk the streets of Baghdad alone, and the Iraqi parliament has already said, go home, we don't want you here. But the American troops are still sitting there. That's the point. They tried all sorts of stunts everywhere, killing around. And now one other point I'll tell you. When the Americans began the invasion of Iraq, they bombed Iraq for 70 days. The Russians did not bomb Ukraine even for one day before the invasion. The reason being, the Russians had planned what is known as a limited military engagement, while the Americans had planned for a full-scale war. But now, once the resistance by the Ukrainians has been beefed up by the Anglo-Saxon powers, by weapons, artillery, various missiles and all that, shoulder-fired missiles, the Russians have gone into full combat and they're going to win ultimately. There's no choice. I don't think Ukraine has any chance. Now, that is the one aspect. The second aspect is what Saudi Arabia has done. It's indicated it's not going to trade with oil with China in petrodollars. It's going to trade in yuan currency, Chinese currency. Now that's going to be a mighty big blow to America. And America has been really perturbed about it. Now, what's going to happen further? UAE will join them. And just I'll remind listeners here that the American president, this gentleman, Joe Biden, made telephone calls, frantic telephone calls to the chief of the royal dynasty, Prince Mohammed bin Saddam, and the ruler of the United Arab Emirates, and both the leaders refused to talk to him. They did not attend to the calls of Joe Biden. Now that's what a big insult you can take it. And nobody's going to talk about it. Just keep quiet about it. Forget it, I mean, don't broadcast it around. But all this shows that America is losing its grip over the world. Tomorrow, if the Arabs start trading in UN, of course, India won't like it. But then India is a marginal player, thanks to the leadership we had earlier with the great Pandit Nehru and all these characters, they sold India down the drain. So that's one part of it. And if that happens and the petrodollar is broken, as it is, India also is going to trade with Russia in the ruble rupee trade. So dollar is not going to be a component there, and China is already trading in yuan. So part of the sanctions are not going to have any effect on Russia. And it is important now for Russia to close the war at an early date. Russia can't afford to fight on for another month or 2 months. That will be disastrous for the Russian economy. They've got to finish the war, get their objectives. I really, frankly, don't know what their objective is. But I presume, as a military historian, that their objective basically is to neutralize Ukraine. That they have done it. They have demilitarized Ukraine. They have done it. That's what they wanted. Ukraine shouldn't join NATO. NATO is not going to offer Ukraine anything. And even the Ukrainian president has said, bye bye, I don't want to be a member of NATO now. So that's also achieved. So they have achieved their basic aims, but I do not know what is the further aims of Vladimir Putin. He's a very shrewd man. And I'm not in his chair, I'm in his seat. I'm not wearing his hat to see exactly what he's doing. But I personally feel the Russians must close the campaign in the next 30 days. After the capture of Kiev and Kharkov, there's a good chance that the Russian army will move in further, and that will be a very quick advance. And most likely, I personally feel that Yeltsin is not going to flee from there, He's not going to be there. Zelensky, I'm sorry, he's not going to be there. He's going to just run away. And he is, in any case, not a knight in shining armor. His name is features in the Panama Papers as a man who's laundered millions of dollars of money, in England and the Virgin Islands and other places. And he's got expensive property in London. So probably he's made all his arrangements to go away. But that's beside the point. Best of luck to him. We have nothing against him. He can enjoy himself. But what we are concerned is about world peace, which has been greatly endangered by Biden and his party. He's got another 2 years to go, and things are going to go downhill until and unless in 2024, if by a miracle or whatever you say it, Donald Trump comes back. In case he does, things will change. As things stand, gentlemen, the battle is going in favor of the Russians, number one. Number two, the sanctions are beginning to take effect on Russia, no doubt about it. And number three, the Americans themselves are the deceiving end. They are going to lose their political hegemony over Europe, and that's a very, very dangerous thing. Why Europe? They're going to lose their hegemony all over the world. In fact, as Winston Churchill said, the battle in Ukraine is the beginning of the end of American hegemony. It's sad and very sad. All the same, gentlemen, I think I'll close now. I hope you find this topic interesting. We'll discuss this issue a little more in details in my next video. At the same time, I will say goodbye to you all. And if you like the video, do tick mark it on your screens, share it with your friends. It'll be very nice if you do it. And I close now with all the best. Have a jolly good day. Jai Hind. Jai Hind.